Hey there, Kingsley here. Today, we're going to talk about something that's a bit serious, but also really important. And that is forgiving infidelity, forgiving an affair. Now, this is a tough topic, as you can imagine, from the various standpoint, because of how it's experienced and the impact it has on a marriage or relationship, both for the person who have been felt as if they have been, betrayed, but also the person who is involved. And so it's important that we talk about this. I think, and my thought is, I believe you think the same way as well. So this video is for you who have been cheated on and are considering forgiveness for the spouse, your spouse, who has cheated on you. Now, researcher Dr. Mariana Bakarova from the University of Toronto, and I hope I didn't destroy her name, she found that there are 32 common reasons why people consider forgiving the one who has cheated on them. And this was listed in the October 2022 issue of Psychology Today, from which I took these 32 common reasons, which I want to share with you today. Now, I've added a brief commentary beside each one. So if you found the article, if you saw the article, you would say, wait a minute, that was not there. Yeah, because I'm going to list what she shared, but I'm also going to give just a brief commentary on each one of those reasons that she gave. Now, as you listen, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this topic. So make sure that you comment below the description and that accompanies this video. Now, for those of who will be listening to this on the Happier Marriage podcast, make sure you send me a DM or on Facebook or IG, Instagram, or a comment on the social media platform where you may see this post. You can also leave, which I hope you do, a rating and a review, and I really appreciate that. So with that said, let's dive in and learn a bit more about what these 32 common reasons why someone would consider forgiving their spouse. Well, before I want to mention that she also she brought this down in four different categories. So I'm going to list a category and then list the reasons under each of those categories. So the first category she mentioned was because of the children, And this, I believe, is a good reasons why you may want to consider forgiveness. Now, she gave three subtopics under this. And the first one was that the argument is that we have children together. Now, sometimes people forgive because they have kids and want to keep the family together, which is, I believe, is a good enough reason. Secondly, we have young children together. When kids are little, some people forgive so they can give them a happy, secure, stable family. And thirdly, my children asked me to forgive. Children might ask their parents to forgive the person, their dad or their mom, who had an affair because they want everyone to be happy again. So that's the first category. The second category she listed was their own infidelity. And she listed two under this one. And she says this, that someone might be thinking that they are planning, and they know this, to cheat themselves. They're going to have an affair. And so surprisingly, some people forgive because they are thinking of cheating as well. Or they have cheated already. And so they might forgive because they have also made a mistake in the past and understand how it feels. And so they're willing to offer forgiveness. Let me just mention this, that, as a licensed marriage and family therapist who have been working in this field for over almost 2 decades or more, the more I think about this, and having been married myself for almost 4 decades. And in my work, I've worked with so many couples, hundreds of couples. And as you can imagine, I have experienced work with couples who have experienced infidelity and an affair in their marriage. And what I find, I remember working with one, not just one, but more than one couple who have when I work with them, individually as well as together, have stated, I too have had an affair in our relationship. And so it made it easier for me. Not easier. The word they used was, I feel like, it's only right. It's only right that I forgive my spouse as well, because I have been there. I've done it. And even one person said it this way, at least they said, I think we're even now. I feel even now. And so we can really move on with our relationship. Right. So, and there are many, many reasons why people do this, but these are the two that she listed under the category of their own infidelity. The third category is a pretty long one, but it's a low likelihood of future infidelity, a low likelihood of future infidelity. So what she listed was, they convinced me that the person who had the affair convinced me that they truly regret it. That's one of the reasons she gave. So if the person who had an affair feels really sorry, some people might forgive them. That's one of the reasons she listed. Secondly, the affair was a casual one and did not recur. When it was a one-time thing and won't happen again, forgiveness might be easier. And I use the word here, won't happen again, is that they believe that the person is remorseful and has shown, great sorrow and repented. They really are convinced that this person will never do it again. And so they're willing to consider forgiveness. Number three, they gave a sound excuse. Sometimes if there's a good reason, now you may say good reason, there's never a good reason that a person have an affair. And you're right, nothing justifies that. I want to make sure I'm clear and I'm on record of saying there's nothing that justifies that. But however, if someone gives a sound excuse, sometimes if there's a good reason behind their affair, people might find it in their heart to forgive. Okay. Number four, they say they will not do it again. Promising not to cheat again could be a reason for forgiveness. Now, that is one that a person may have to really chew on for a while, because they're simply saying, how can I believe you this time if you did it the first time? But sometimes, a person may come to their senses or have a come to Jesus moment, and they promise that they're never going to do it again. And that person have to decide. And again, remember, all of these are going to be, they're not necessarily true for every person. Every situation is different, and I can't tell a couple what they need to do. I can make some suggestions and show why either forgiveness might be helpful or why they may want to do some deeper work, individual work, and so on. But I believe that forgiveness is really the way forward. And so there are always exceptions, but I believe, especially as a Christian, that God has called us to forgive, and we have no choice. We have no choice but to forgive. Now, it doesn't mean that because we forgive, we have to put ourselves back in the situation to over and over again. Not necessarily. There are even scriptural reasons given to hold a person accountable and make sure that they bring forth, as the Bible says, fruit worthy of repentance, right? They've got to show that. So when I say that, there's a good reason behind, there's a good reason behind the affair, and again, I hate to use the word good, because there's no good reason, right? But if there's a reason, let's put it that way, that's convincing enough, that person may find it in their heart to forgive. But 5, they showed me that they really want to be with me. So when the person proves their love, it might lead to forgiveness. They really have convinced the person that they want to be with them. Number 6, I love them. I just love my husband. I love my wife. And, I've had couples who have said that to me. I know he's have done this. I know she've done this, but I truly love her. I truly love him, and I want to be with him. And so love is a powerful thing, and it may be the reason why it makes forgiveness easier, because it truly love. Say, well, Kingsley, that's stupid love. No. You have to understand, when you truly love someone, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. That's what love does. True, deep love does things that you would never understand unless you have that kind of love yourself. Number 7, it was the first time they did it. First time mistakes might be forgiven more easily, right? Because I know the mind is, okay, if this happened this time, then could it have happened in the past and I just don't know about it? And that's true, it could. But here's the thing. But if you know your husband or your wife, you have a good idea whether or not what you're listening into make it really to you it's a first time thing. Number 8, they confess it on their own. If the person admits their mistake, forgiveness might be on the horizon, right? It's not that the person found out or they, had to go snooping. They confess it on their own, and that it's tend to be a bit easier, but it's a lot of work has to be done as well. Number 9, they did it only once. One-time slip-ups might be forgivable, and I kind of covered that before. Number 10, they persuaded me that they truly love me. When they show their love, it might lead to forgiveness. We covered that before. Number 11, it was a frivolous act. Some people might forgive if the affair didn't mean anything serious. And I have also worked with couples who have said, it doesn't mean anything to me. She doesn't mean anything to me. He doesn't mean anything to me. And they've used that argument and say it's a frivolous act. And it just really was one of those inappropriate, or not inappropriate, but the word I'm looking for is slipping my mind. But let's get the word frivolous here for now, right? And some people might forgive the affair didn't mean anything to that person, and they convince their spouse that there's nothing there. There's no attachment. It means nothing to them. It's like a one-night stand, right? It was one of those moments where they just it wasn't thinking. Number 12, they were drunk when the incident happened. Being drunk can cloud, as you know, judgment, and some people might understand that and are willing to forgive. Especially if they say they know their husband or their wife, they can tend to drink a bit too much. And sometimes when they're drunk, they do and say stupid things, right? So they're more apt to understand that when their husband or their wife had the affair, they were drunk, they understand, and maybe now they have to work on, removing alcohol from the equation, period. The 4th category is dependency on one's partner. And then the person might say this: I depend on them financially. So some people rely on their partner's money and might forgive to keep the support. Again, it's understandable. And I'm not the person to make that judgment call, but some people recognize that if they divorce, what's going to happen to them financially? I cannot tell you the amount of persons that I've listened to. And the first thought is, I don't know how I'm going to afford being on my own, because the other person was a main breadwinner, for example. And so they just freak out. I don't know, so they might choose to forgive for the sake of their financial dependence. Number 2, I cannot easily find someone else. If it's hard to find another partner, some people might forgive the one that they have, right, who have done this deed, because they think about, man, I'm older, or I've been married for so long, I don't even know how to get started on this whole thing anymore, and I can't find someone else, so they'll forgive. Number 3, I do not have another place to stay. This is a big one also, right? Without anyone else, without anywhere else to go, forgiveness might be a choice, because they're simply saying, you know what, I think better to work on our marriage and our relationship than to break it up, and then I don't know where I'm going to go. That's a big thing for people. And so we can't judge and say how stupid they are. We don't know until we walk in someone's shoes why they make the certain decision they made. And who am I to judge? However, I can come alongside and help them to now navigate that decision in a better way, or help with more clarity. Number 4, I received financial support from them. Getting money from the partner might make forgiveness more likely, and I covered that earlier as well. Number 5, I fear someone else will take them from me. Being afraid of losing your partner, your husband, your wife to someone else might lead to forgiveness. And again, when you think about all the investment of time and energy into the relationship, and now someone else is going to be with that person, it's hard. I've seen people fought for their relationship based upon that. Number 5, I feel, no, I'm sorry, number 6, I am used to being with them. When you're used to someone, you might forgive to keep that familiar, that thing, keep things familiar, right? I can't tell you how many couples have talked about this very thing, where they've said, man, I just don't know. I don't see my life without them. I'm so used to them for all these years. We get up together, we go to bed together, and so because they're so used to that, it's a familiar place, they will choose to consider forgiveness. Number 7, my family urged me to forgive them. Sometimes family members might encourage forgiveness because they might see something that the person who's in it don't see right away. And they have other reasons as well, sometimes ulterior motives. And sometimes you have to examine and why a family member might want to encourage you to forgive. But don't dismiss it just because you are, just listen and see what they have to say. But sometimes it's because of family members why the person might want to consider forgiveness. Number 8, I don't want to waste my investment in this relationship. What they're saying is that they put a lot of time into the relationship, and so they might as well forgive to make it work. And I kind of covered that earlier too. Number 9, I am old. Age might make people want to consider forgiveness. They just don't want to start over, and it's too much. They just don't want to start over. Again, it's understandable, and it may be the thing that may turn things around as well. Number 10, that person threatened to commit suicide, threatens self-harm. It might lead to forgiveness. I've seen people use it. Now, I sometimes see that as manipulation. They will try to manipulate and try to put the guilt. And so if they commit suicide, who want to think that, just because I didn't forgive my husband or my wife, she or he committed suicide? You don't want it on your shoulder. And sometimes it might be a manipulative technique, right? That the person is using to kind of guilt that person to stay. But sometimes it's real. I mean, I cannot tell you, I've worked with clients who have said, I'd rather die. I'd rather die than not be with this person. So yes, that can happen. So you have to really, truly don't take any suicidal kind of comment loosely or just, no, take it very seriously. I take it very seriously. And of course, this is where you want professional help to see how you can assess to make sure that this person is not going to commit suicide. And everything I've covered so far, I recommend getting that outside professional help to guide you into, once you made the decision to forgive, how to navigate that, right? I think it's better to not just it's best not to do this on your own, because you're so emotional, you're so much in it that you could really be overlooking some things, or maybe you're kind of factoring some things that may not really be facts. It's just with feelings. And so it's good to have a third person who understands this dynamic to help walk you through this as well. And number 11, they are seriously ill. Serious illness might lead to forgiveness because of sympathy and empathy and compassion, right? So I've seen that where, again, the person would say, I'm just here because I can't just leave my husband or my wife because they're sick. And this could be mentally, and this could be physically, right? Or even emotionally. But most times it's when it's physical, where you're thinking that, man, my husband, my partner is really sick and they could die. And here it is that I could have forgiven them. And basically, at least if they do die, I don't have to have that on my shoulder and carry that into my future. Now, as you can see, there are a number of reasons. These are 32 of the most common reasons. But here's what happened, that as we're coming to the end of this topic, it's understandable, or I want to make sure that I mention this, that forgiveness can be complicated, right? But understanding these reasons that I've just shared can help us be more understanding and kind and empathetic. Remember, it's essential to treat each other with love and respect in all of our relationships. Even when something like this has happened, it's important to walk in a way that's dignified. It's a way that, don't lose yourself in this process. Don't become someone else. As a matter of fact, if you are a Christ follower, this is where you really truly need to exemplify what Christ would do if he was in a situation like you were. And I know also that when it comes to, you know, women and men, they think differently about forgiving an affair, right? But I still believe that both parties need to consider whether or not divorce is the best option. And sometimes it is not. I've known people who have had parents who had a very open, where affair was very open, very public, and they chose to stay together. Of course, ridiculed by others and questioned and judged by others, but they made that decision to stay together. And that was the best decision they made, because the kids who are adults now have told me that, they're glad their parents stayed together and did not divorce. As a matter of fact, most studies show that when you're able to forgive and stay together, you're more likely to look back 5, 8, 7, 8 years from now and look at it as the best decision you made for your family. So again, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I just want to highlight these ideas as well. As you can tell, there's different reasons why people consider forgiveness. But I want to say again, for me as a Christ follower, my first thing would be that God has called me to forgive no matter what, because he's forgiven me of my sins, of the things I've done wrong. Now, people are more likely to forgive if they truly believe in their heart that it won't ever happen again, and they want to save their marriage. I don't know where you fall on this. I don't know where you are at right now, but I just pray that God would give you the grace. And remember, again, is to be, see this as could be an opportunity. It could be an opportunity for a reset. I wanted to share something that I wrote down here. I want to make sure I don't miss this, because I think that it was such an important thing. So forgive me while I'm looking here at what I wrote down. Where did I write that? Up here. So I think this is also important to understand that this is running on a wrap it up with this, that having an affair or an infidelity, it often leads most people to the end of a relationship. But in some cases, it marks the beginning of a new relationship. Yes, perhaps more painful, but it might be because of the pain, you're able to gain something totally different. People have said to me, I want to go back to what we were before. I said, are you sure you want to go back to how the things were before the affair? You want to go back to that? I wonder if that was the reason why the affair occurred. Again, there's no excuse. We can't justify that. But sometimes you want to have a better relationship than you had before. So it could be the beginning of a new relationship, right? Because it'd be also perhaps more realistic about the person that you are with. Maybe you want to be more realistic and realize he or she is human, and all of us, but for God's grace, could find ourselves in those situations. I wrap it up with this one scripture verse that I think is so pertinent, and that's Jeremiah. But the Bible said in Jeremiah that the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Meaning that the heart in of itself will lead us to things that we would do that we would never thought we could have done. But for God's grace and God's keeping, there goes I. That's what the scripture says. That's what we have learned, and that's what I want to hopefully take away from here. I would love to hear from you, your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts? Make sure you comment below and let me know what your thoughts are on this. I'd love to hear your opinion, or if any of this resonated with you. If you want to share that, you can. If you want to direct message me, you can. But I would really love to hear your thoughts on this. Remember now that as you watch this on the YouTube channel here, make sure you hit the subscribe button, right? Please hit the subscribe button. If you like what you're hearing, hit the like button. If you want to be notified of any future videos that I do, hit that bell right there as well. So, but it's important you hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate that. Those of you who are listening to this by the podcast, again, thank you for listening. And you will also hear what you can do in the podcast, because there's a closing, automatic closing you'll hear that will tell you from the announcer what to do there as well. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. for being here. I really appreciate this. And again, please share this with one other spouse. Maybe you might know someone who's going through this and they might want to hear this. So share this with at least one other spouse. I would really appreciate that. So with that said, my friend, I want to say God bless you. Thank you for being here. And I do hope that you stay strong and stay healthy and have a very have a more optimism in your mindset. Here's what I know. There's no valley that can be too low that God can't reach you. There's no pain that's too great that God cannot heal. While you're going through this, if you are, self-care, 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 and use this to become the best version of yourself. Okay? God bless you. I'll see you on the next release of my video and also my podcast. See you then. God bless.